The film opens with a battlefield in World War I, 1918, where a German soldier, Thomas, gets killed by an explosion. As he dies, he sees a vision of a little girl calling his name. During ceasefire, bodies of the fallen soldiers are dropped into a pit, including Thomas. However, his superior notices that he is still alive, and pulls him aside. When he takes a look at Thomas' side, he finds bruises caused by the explosion. We then skip to 6 months later. The war is over, and Thomas now works as a post-mortem photographer. He just finished taking a picture of a family with their dead daughter when he meets Anna. Anna, who came from a village nearby, informs him that there are quite a few unburied dead bodies in her village, whose families would love to get their pictures taken. He takes a good look at Anna right before she leaves, and is confounded by the realization that Anna is the girl he saw in his vision, right when he died before. Intrigued by this, he decides to follow Anna back to her village. To put context as to what's going on, many Europeans are dying during this time period because of both the Spanish flu and the World War, hence the many dead bodies in Anna's village. Also, the reason why most of them have not been buried yet is because winter is coming, and the ground has frozen over. Now back to the story. Thomas arrives at the village, and sees a glimpse of Anna dragging her sick aunt in a wheelchair. He finds lodging in the house of Marxa, a mysterious and quiet woman who lives alone. He also finds the villagers odd but makes nothing of it. Once he settles in, he comes across Anna roaming about, and asks if he could come with her. They take a stroll up the hill and bond with each other, with Anna sharing that her mother died, and her father never came back from the war, so she now lives with her aunt. As it turns out, Anna is headed towards the graveyard, and we learn that she often visits this place, and seems fascinated with the dead. Later at night, Thomas is woken up from his sleep by a noise of someone moving about. He goes to investigate, but then the scream is coming from another room, so he enters it. The footsteps are coming to the attic, so he climbs up out of curiosity, but finds nothing there. He comes back to bed and goes back to sleep, right when this happens. In the morning, he tries telling Marxa about the strange noises he heard last night, but Marxa simply diverts the topic like he never asked. Later, Thomas begins his first day as a post-mortem photographer in the village, with the help of a villager who is kind enough to let Thomas set up a makeshift studio in his home. One by one, the villagers start bringing in the dead bodies of their loved ones, while Thomas carefully poses them, and even puts makeup on them so that they would look more alive. Sometime during the session, Anna visits him because she is intrigued by his work. She talks about how she is not afraid of being around dead people, and instead is only scared of ghosts. However, when she is going through Thomas' portfolio, Anna suddenly looks uncomfortable, and excuses herself. Curious, Thomas follows her home, and peeks through the window to find Anna tending to her sick aunt. Thomas goes away, and resumes his day by setting up a darkroom to print the pictures he just took. However, he notices something odd. There appears to be an ominous shadow of a person in the background. He prints more pictures, and realizes that all of them have similar shadows as well. Thomas spends the rest of his day pondering about what might have caused this. Right when he hears a scream, Thomas follows the restless villagers to a burning house, where they find someone's leg dangling above the fireplace. A villager blows a hole through the wall to see who it is. Thomas snaps several pictures, while the villagers drag out the burnt woman. Afterwards, Thomas examines the pictures he took from the burning house, and finds several shadows in them too. Anna comes over, and tells him that it must be the ghosts who did it, signifying that there really are strange entities roaming this village, and that Anna knows about them, and then all the furniture get knocked over. Scared, she makes a dash outside, but Tomas follows her and embraces her to calm her down. To his surprise, she shoves him away and tells him to leave, because although she has always known that there are ghosts in the village, they never hurt anyone before Tomas came. That night, when Tomas is asleep, something strange happens. He immediately wakes up, packs up and takes a horse to leave the village. However, when he takes a rest and falls asleep, he has a nightmare about Anna being attacked by unseen forces. Not wanting this to happen, he returns, and Anna, who didn't actually mean what she said yesterday, welcomes him cheerfully. Accompanied by Anna, Tomas begins asking around to see if anyone else in the village has been experiencing strange things as well. He happens upon 2 villagers, and the 2 share stories about strange sounds on the attic at night, and one of them even says that a shadowy figure grabbed her ankle during her sleep. They then proceed to visit Yutka, a widow who tells them about the strange manner of her husband Tybalt's death. She claims that she was just returning from the basement, when her husband's neck simply melted off and he died on the spot. Tomas and Anna decide to investigate the basement, but they find nothing there. Unbeknownst to them, a shadow is lurking in the basement, and as the 2 are about to climb back upstairs, Anna is suddenly lifted off the ground, while Tomas gets dragged to sit on the dining chair, mimicking the exact event that killed Yutka's husband. To make it even creepier, Tomas and Anna begin yelling Yutka and Tybalt at each other. When it's over, they rush outside, and ask to see Tybalt's dead body. Yutka points them to the barn, where the bodies of the dead villagers are kept. Anna recognizes all of them, and says that they all died from the Spanish flu, but as Tomas takes a closer look, he finds that they have similar bruises as the one he has himself, meaning that they somehow were killed by an explosion instead. Tomas theorizes that the ghosts must be flying around, and causing explosion-like effects, which killed these villagers. He is also convinced that the ghosts are trying to talk to him and Anna for some reason, because if the ghosts wanted to kill them, they would have already. The 2 then go to work, they hang up bells around the barn to mark the ghosts' arrival, and with the help of 2 villagers, they spread flour all over the floor. Tomas naturally sets up his camera to take pictures, along with a phonograph to record sounds, in case the ghosts are trying to talk to them. At night, the 2 set up camp at the barn, and trade stories about how they both died and came back to life. As it turns out, Anna was stillborn because she choked on her umbilical cord during birth, but she somehow came back to life. And then suddenly, the haunting has started. They begin hearing rapid footsteps all over the roof, and the bell starts ringing. Out in the streets, a village boy Lasika is out and about in the night, right when he senses something's amiss, and begins running. Lasika's mother steps out of her house and finds her son there. She attempts to save her son but gets stopped by an unseen force. Inside the barn, Tomas and Anna take cover while all the bells are ringing. Suddenly, a shadow flies into the room, and slides under them. Anna loses her footing and drops right on top of the dead bodies, and then she steps away in fear, while Tomas gets dragged by an unseen force. But then all of a sudden, everything stops. Tomas and Anna warily step out of the barn to check things out, and after making sure coast is clear, he tells Anna to wait outside while he goes back to retrieve his camera. But once he gets back inside, he stares in horror at the sight of the rotting corpses floating in strange poses in the air. What makes it even more strange, Anna is in the middle, and she suddenly makes a dash towards him. The real Anna joins Tomas inside, followed by the 2 villagers that helped them earlier. The next morning, Tomas and Anna listen to the phonograph recording from last night, but find nothing. Bored, Tomas heads to the dark room to print the photos from last night instead. As expected, shadows turn up in the photos, and he shouts to announce it to Anna, prompting the girl to press on the recording to pause it. Right then, Anna discovers that if she slows down the recording, she's actually able to hear coherent words of a scary voice of a man, asking Tomas to take him to the grave. Tomas returns to the room, and shows her the photos from last night, one of them somehow being of a snowy winding path. Afterwards, Anna shows him the recording. The villagers crowd in front of the house to ask what's going on, and Anna shares her and Tomas' recent findings. She deduces that the ghosts aren't spirits of the dead villagers. After the villagers leave, Tomas and Anna venture around the village to look for the place that matches the photo. They arrive at Lasika's house, and finds Lasika along with the rest of his family dead. The rest of the villagers take notice of the scream, and rush to check out what's going on. And then, a man gets dragged away, while the rest of the villagers try to pull him to no avail. He ends up getting dragged into a house, and floats on the ceiling. It doesn't stop there. Objects are scarily moving on their own, prompting the villagers to panic. They huddle in fear and start to pray, but things don't seem to get better. Even worse, the man leading the prayer begins to get possessed, before passing out on the ground. More and more villagers start floating. And even Anna's crippled aunt suddenly rises from her wheelchair, and starts walking. She lunges at Tomas, and with the same voice as the recording earlier pleads to be taken to the grave, shortly before passing out. Lasika rises from the dead and begins walking towards the villagers, while they go hide inside the village's chapel. They close the chapel door, and Tomas soon realizes that Anna's not inside. Worried for her safety, he begs to be let out. He finds her inside the barn, floating in the air before getting dragged outside. Thomas rushes to her aid, but he realizes the two of them aren't strong enough to stop the ghosts. He comes up with a plan and asks Marksa to tell the villagers to carry all of the dead bodies outside of the barn, because the ghosts are attracted to dead bodies. He follows Anna into Lasika's house, where Anna's aunt is possessed and thrashing about. The villagers work together, and begin arranging the dead bodies in Lasika's house. But the house suddenly rattles. Cracks begin appearing on the wall. And the house begins to sink to the ground. The ghost finally stops dragging Anna away, so Tomas takes her in his arms and hands her over to Marksa through the gap left on the door. Unfortunately, Tomas is now stuck inside the sinking house. Water starts seeping through the cracked walls and floods the floor, while the roof is now on fire. As if things are not bad enough, this happens. The dead people starting to rise up, one of them is on fire. Meanwhile, water keeps rising inside the house, leaving Tomas with no option but to dive to look for a way out, but then it turns out that the corpses inside the house are coming back to life as well. One of them pulls Tomas under, and demands him to bring them to afterlife. At this point, Tomas runs out of breath and chokes on water, before passing away. In the next scene, he finds himself inside an ominous building that we can assume is purgatory, where he finds the dead bodies of the villagers inside the rooms. While Tomas is in purgatory, Marksa attempts to rescue Tomas by taking a rope, and climbing the burning roof. Marksa enters through the chimney, while Tomas keeps exploring the rooms. Now the dead bodies inside Tomas' purgatory are rising up from the dead as well, only this time, they follow Tomas towards what appears to be divine light. Meanwhile, Marksa has successfully made it inside the building. She reaches for Tomas and loops the noose around his legs, before dragging him up the chimney with her. They safely make their way back up, and the villagers try to rouse Tomas from the dead. Back in purgatory, Tomas finds himself alone, with Anna floating across the room. He comes up to her and lies beside her. They float together and he gets carried upwards by a swirl of gray shadows. Back in the realm of the living, Anna is crying and begging for him to wake up, and we can see a similar gray shadow floating in the sky. But then, Tomas sees a vision of Anna he saw in the beginning of the movie. The vision seems to snap Tomas back to Earth, and he comes back to life. The gray shadow disappears into thin air while Anna smiles in relief. Some time has passed, and it is now time for Tomas to leave. He and Marksa express their farewells, and we see Anna happily coming along with him. Together, they ride far away from the village, and stop upon the sight of a dead bull, followed by the voices of screaming villagers in the distance. The movie ends with the two deciding to head to this village to help the people just like they helped Anna's village.